All right, the last thing I wanted to be able to show you is some other things that we can do by controlling the family with flip controls and also some visibility settings. So in order to demonstrate the flip controls a little bit better, I am going to set the dimension between here, this 2 inches. I'm going to unlock it, and then I'm going to move this line out. Whoops. Got to get in close enough so I can edit that. One of the things that drives me crazy about. Okay, let's set this to there. Now I can see them. Okay. So let's change that number. Oh, come on. Maybe I have to unlock both of them. There we go. So let's change that number to 1 foot. So now I've got like a larger overhang on this side of the table over here. So let's set this back to 1.5 inch equals a foot so we can see the numbers. So this is an example of where I'd want to maybe be able to flip this table. So if we look at it in 3D, you might have a situation where you want a bigger overhang on one side of the table. It's kind of goofy looking, but it just still will demonstrate the flip action for you. So if we go to the reference level from the top, if this is the way that table is designed, I may want to flip it so the overhangs on this side or that side. So you're going to go to create and create a flip control. And you've got all these different ways of flipping. So we've got a flip that goes up and back and down or side to side. So we probably want the side to side one in this example. I'm just going to place it right there in the top reference view. And then I'm just going to save it and load it into the family, overwrite the existing version. And now when I click on one of the tables, you get that little flip action, and it's going to flip the whole table one side to the other. Now, if you were expecting it to flip so it stayed centered, we could do it that way, but we'd have to redesign the way that we laid out the table. Remember at the very beginning, when I set this table up, I used the original, whoops. Don't want another one. I'm making a bunch of flips. Let's get rid of all these. We don't need all those flip actions there. Okay, so when I originally made the table, I made it so the lower left-hand corner of the table here was aligned with the center right, left, and the center front back. So this is considered the center, but I just was lazy and I defined the width of the table off of that edge. If we wanted this to behave so that it flipped so that the table was centered, I would have had to lay out the table so it was equally spaced on either side of these center lines, and then it would flip so it was centered. So it takes a little bit more work to have to draw everything and measure it from the center of the table. So the edge of the table or the width would be equally half the width on one side, half the width on the other of each one of these lines. And then it would behave differently. I think this works just fine, however, so I would just leave it and know that once you flip it, you just need to reposition the table after the fact. And these can be flipped individually. That's not a type thing. So notice that in this top view, we're able to see that chamfer. And that's a lot of extra detail that we may not want to have to see when we're looking down on the part or down on the table in a plan view. So I'm going to show you now how to turn off certain reference lines. And the way we can do that is we can select the item, the chamfer itself, and we can edit the visibility setting. And I don't want to see it in plan. And maybe I don't want to see it in course as well. So when I hit OK here and save that setting, and reload the file into the project. That should have overridden the existing things, but let's go back and try again, because it might be that I have to actually make sure that the entire thing isn't showing. And then I have to make a, let me see what I've got, a void. Yeah, it might be because it's a void, I actually have to hide the whole thing. So let's go into visibility and settings and get rid of the plan, reflected ceiling plane. That's what RCP stands for. And then I'm going to save it just so you see what happens. We load it into the project, overwrite the existing version, and now only the legs are showing. We're going to fix that, don't worry. So I also don't want the legs to show, so I'm going to select all that and go into, I might have to filter it. Let's see. It should let me do that. Let me see. View. It's not letting me get into the visibility and settings, so I might have to do this one thing at a time. So go to visibility and settings and just turn off the visibility and settings for the plan view for all of these items. Until you know that you have them all turned off. Okay, I think that's everything. Yeah. Now what we need to do, because if we keep it that way, we'll have a invisible table in the top view. We have to do, we have to create some model lines that will represent the top of the table in this view. So those model lines are going to show up, and we want to make sure that they're locked with the table size. When we save it and load it into the project, save it, load it into the project. It looks like I still have to turn off some table leg stuff that's still showing up in here, but that line that we're seeing here to represent the top of the table is really just a detail line, and it's just minimizing some of the futzier details that we'd see from the chamfer and things like that that we maybe don't want to see in a plan view. So it's a way of controlling your line work so you're seeing less. A good example of how this is done automatically that you may not have realized in your windows and doors. You click on and place a window, we have some trim work showing up here under coarse. If I go into medium, I'm going to maybe see a little bit more detail, or fine, I'm going to see a little bit more detail. If I actually select that window and edit the family, however, and look at it in there's a lot of trim work and stuff that, why isn't it showing in my plan view? And if I go into my reference plan view, the reason for that is it's been turned off, or it's not showing in that view. So all of that model stuff is not appearing in this view. Let's go back to this view, see if we can select it. So if we go into visibility and settings, this is only showing up in the front and the back. It's only showing up in the left and right. It's not showing up in the plan. If I were to turn it on, it would show up in the plan. So let's look at this trim that we have here in the front. Visibility and settings, it's not showing up in plan. What happens if I turn it on in the plan? What do we see from that top view? We see that extra line work is showing up here that we maybe don't want to see, that clutters that plan view. So I'm not going to save these changes. So this detailing and visibility is just a way for us to control the amount of line work that we see in plan, as opposed to every single little detail line that we might see in a family file that we create. So those are the two things I wanted you to kind of get the grasp of for concepts. Let's edit that family one more time to see if we can get rid of seeing these in our visibility and graphics. Yeah, that's what it was, is the top edge of those tables were still showing. Let's see if that one's still showing. Probably is. Yes, you have to turn it off in each one of them. That's off. Let's look at the left view. That's off. I've got to check each one of them. That one was still on. And I think I've got them all now. Whoops. Yep, I think so. Okay, so now if I save this, load it into the project, overwrite the existing versions. There we go. That's what we want to try to see for the representing our tables. So I think I covered most of the things that I really wanted to make sure you understood, and you can carry that on through your other projects. I'll probably be posting a video on how to create that door with a single side light in the Craftsman project that we had, because we didn't have a door that had that. So I'll be showing you how to do that as one of the examples of how to modify an existing family.